POTUS. High POTUS.
Give Ginger McQueen whistleblower status, but there's gotta be a reason she's so loose with the purse strings, if you know what I mean.
I have a problem with me telling you that the president is fully aware of who I am. Before I ever ran for this, by the way.
High POTUS.
He knows who I am.
Your Voice America, Brandon Dilley, who is our regular Wednesday night co-host, is running for Congress there, and 2 polls had him leading about a week ago, and hopefully he's running today. We'll see what happens. But thank you, Ann Vandersteel, and tell Brennan that we wish him the very best out there, okay?
Of course.
Give Ginger McQueen whistleblower status, but there's gotta be a reason she's so loose with the purse strings, if you know what I mean.
Testing settings, just testing settings. This looks much better than the last one. Might have found something here.
Money tree, trust the plan means enrich the thieves. Everybody's grifting for
High POTUS.
New dreams are made of schemes. A fuller supply, money tree, trust the plan means enrich the thieves. Everybody's grifting for something. New dreams are made of schemes. A fuller supply, money tree, trust the plan means enrich the thieves. Everybody's grifting for something.
High POTUS. High POTUS. High POTUS.
Here's a story of a dead-eyed Annie who is scheming for money all day long, while Bill still lives at home with his mother. The dealster loves his mom. It's the story of a guy named Fiore who's done plenty of grifting on his own. Fiore and Schmeg moved in together. Fake chest cover was blown. Till one day when Annie met Fiore, and they knew that Q could rake them in so much that with Dream and Medic and the likes of Tracy, that's the way they became the PayPal bunch. The PayPal bunch. The PayPal bunch. That's the way they became the PayPal bunch.
Original tune right here.
Setting petals off to Gizmo, twisting the facts with his words, shilling me softly with cute songs, shilling me softly with cute songs, singing martial law is declared, shilling me softly with cute songs. I heard you sang a good song. I heard you had a style. And so I went to H&M to listen for a while. And there Q was disanon, teasing boomers with his lies, setting petals up to Gizmo, twisting the facts with his words, shilling me softly with cute songs, shilling me softly with cute songs, singing martial law is declared, shilling me softly with cute songs. You had the highest clearance the government allowed. I felt you found my wallet and let every dollar out. I prayed that mass arrest would happen, but he just kept rambling on, setting petals off to Gizmo, twisting the facts with his words, shilling me softly with cute songs, shilling me softly with cute songs, singing martial law is declared, shilling me softly with cute songs. Setting petals off to get more, twisting all that facts with his words, shilling me softly with his songs, singing martial law is declared, shilling me softly with his songs.
Yeah. What are you gonna say about that?
Oh, man, no,
Nope. What are you gonna say about that shit? It's fucking talent. You know what that is? That's talent. Morning. Big things happening. Big things happening. You gotta pile in the caffeine and the share button. Don't worry, this is regular coffee. I'm not shilling any coffee. You don't have to buy a mug. I got no spoons to sell you. We're here to learn a little bit about what's the late breaking information that's coming out here on the crackdown of the QAnon conspiracy. Yes, yesterday I stayed awake all night, obviously. Who's watching me on Scope knows that, so that I could wake up my my little newly turned 5-year-old yesterday. So she had a great day, good birthday to it. I was just so wiped out yesterday that I made it till about 11 p.m. and I missed the whole epic Glenn Scope from last night. Hence the coffee here. I've been up since 6 o'clock. So I'm reading and calling and texting people that I would not normally do, just kind of putting the feelers out there that people are giving me information through DMs, and I really appreciate that. Not all of it is confirmable at this time. So what I'm getting back through the feed channel at this point are some alarming. If you're not, I listened to about an hour and a half of what Glenn was saying last night, and he almost set the stage for what is actually being said now today. So very interesting things are said to be underway, and it seems to be a confluence of events stemming from the Secret Service has had a long growing file, obviously, since QAnon was a thing at all, originally on 4chan. And then what they do is they monitor anything that involves conspiracy theories, and the president's involved in any of their conspiracy theories. What happens is, they activate the part of the Department of Treasury, which oversees the Secret Service. They have a whole team of people who do this kind of stuff, warehousing data, archiving data. What they do is they keep an eye on all these profiles and people that are interacting on this. And yes, of course, that involves the so-called Iron Curtain of anonymity of the 8chan, which doesn't exist at all. There is no keystroke that the government can't crack. There's no defense, and there's no way that you'll ever hide behind any VPN. You just won't be able to do it. So, which was all fun and games when it was just everybody talking about martial law, rounding up Democrats who kill babies and drink their blood, and send them to Gitmo and all this other stuff. Now it's been complicated. It's been complicated because Twitter is already navigating a very fine road on how not to ban, because they're in a sensitive period right now. They've been exposed for being overly audacious with their banning or shadow banning of these conservative accounts. So they've been trying to let this thing go as far as they can without getting into the larger accounts like In the Matrix, Praying Medic, Joe M, all these Q related accounts that push the gamut, talking about killing babies and Hillary Clinton being a Satanist and drinking their blood and all things like that, John Podesta and all that other stuff. What I guess they refer to as good, honest fun, which of course most people are horrified by because it doesn't make any sense. So what you have now is an escalation. The escalation, like I said, is a confluence of events. The confluence, of course, begins with part one, and that is the 8chan board being obviously the number one focal point of the New Zealand shooter and his missive, if you will, that he put forth on there, and the live stream that was associated on there. 8chan went under the microscope. And if you know anything about 8chan, which is probably more than I know about 8chan, 8chan is built on the not only the anonymous characterization of being able to say what you want in a free speech way, even if it's hate speech, but do it where mods are pretty much hands off. It's a laissez-faire issue. 4chan became kind of a wasteland for these people that really wanted to get into the Zionist theories, the Satan worshiping Democrat theories. The mostly the stuff is like black pill, J questions, a lot of racist stuff in there, and of course there's a well-known corner dedicated repeatedly to child pornography. And of course, they do everything from child pornography to actual murder scene pictorials, things of that nature. I don't know what's going on there, Rooftop. All you can do is click and try. I don't know. Either way, so that's the starting point. The starting point goes to, okay, 8chan's under the focus now. And then, of course, we have this Camelo fellow, I call him that for the rhyme, in New York, who just so happens to kill. Turns out this might be a little bit of a crime of passion issue with the Gambino crime boss, the first crime boss to get wiped out in about, I don't know, 3 decades. So this guy gets arrested and manages to just put, patriots are in charge, where we go one, we go all, with the acronym, and then of course the big Q on the palm of his hand. And as Obi mentioned, it was on the cover of the New York Post and other New York related magazines yesterday and papers. So that is the confluence of which I'm talking about. So we've got these two issues that are popping up. Now it's activated multiple agencies, because typically if no American citizens are killed on foreign soil, there were no American citizens, to my knowledge, that were in the mosque that were killed in New Zealand. Typically, if in fact there were, the FBI would be mobilized. So if there are any Americans killed abroad, the FBI is mobilized. And in some cases, when you have a social media platform that is either housed primarily, the servers are probably not, but housed primarily by someone in the United States of America, or the interaction seems to be related to anyone who may have boosted it or had known prior knowledge of this and did not report it, the FBI will get involved. So from what my initial take is, from what we're initially hearing is, there is in fact a crossover now, even though that this crime was committed exclusively on foreign soil with no known American citizens being victimized by it. And the 8chan servers in question may and probably are not exclusively housed here in the United States, continental United States of America. We have names of people that, or sought the identity of these people who were putting forth the live stream link and continuing to perpetuate it. And then, of course, said some incendiary things that would make one think perhaps they had prior knowledge and then didn't report it, which is problematic because the FBI wants to know all of this stuff. And then, like I said, the confluence of that right on top of this guy, this Camelo, and the writing of Q on his hand, which is enough to trigger the alphabet agencies, which will get the files from the Secret Service and look into what this QAnon is. And then all of a sudden, the not so small sheeple in the Q Army are the ones that are being looked at in the larger accounts. And now they're getting into who are these people, what did they know, and then they're going to look into what they're doing with this information. So you have to then start thinking like the federal investigators. So what they're seeing now is multiple acts of violence. They're constricting their myopic investigatory skills onto 8chan, and upon 8chan, we have a focus on much of which is the housing facility, if you will, warehousing facility for all these Q drop. And then the government starts looking into, okay, now we have a murder where somebody is following up with some type of relation of Q, and apparently had been searching Q in one or if not both cases, in the shooter of New Zealand and of course in this case in New York with this Camelo fellow. So what you've got is now you've got the attention of the Secret Service, which has never really not been paying attention to this. And again, I'm going to, before I get too deep into what I've learned over the last 6 hours, I'm going to tell you again something very important when I get my caffeine in me here. It's good coffee. Secret Service. I learned following the Florida last year, the Florida rally that was CNN putting the Q people on the front stage. And that was when it brought the attention to a lot of what Scott Adams started talking about it. And a lot of this stuff started, right around the election time and the rallies that were going on. They decided they were going to let, some Q people get up there because it was good for CNN, MSNBC to have people related to Q because we look like we're insane. So they put them up. And that was when it kind of started getting a little bit more populated. And it wasn't just, Ben Collins' NBC Twitter account or Will Sommer at Daily Beast, kind of screwing around. Then it became a little bit more covered. And of course, the Q people desire to be profiled. So they desire to be profiled as they were, like in the recent Politico article yesterday. And then they say they're being attacked. And they say things like, all this for a lark. Well, it is, in fact, something that they want. They want the exposure. The media outlets know that. So what they like to do is keep it away from where it originates. So now they're being forced to talk about where it originates. They're talking about 8chan. And when you look at 8chan and you start with Q, that would be one thing. But they're looking at 8chan not only in that respect, they're looking at 8chan for potential radicalization of the New Zealand shooter. Now you've opened up to FBI purview. So now the FBI will comb through. Now the FBI is going to want identities, and 8chan can try to, the proprietors thereof can try to fight off if they want, but there's no way in hell you're going to be able to. What I'm telling you and warning you right now is if you're one of these, trolls in the 8chan universe that think you are honestly an anonymous person, you are not. You are no longer guaranteed any status of anonymity at this point. Not going to happen. Federal government will find out who you are. If you said anything that looks like it was contributing to this event in New Zealand, it was not good. Now they're also looking at is the level of what you're attempting to convince others you're seeing. So if Q is attempting to posit sensitive government information, i.e. provide advanced intel not available outside secure channels, now you are violating, technically, if true, you're violating security protocols. So now we've kicked in not just the Secret Service end under the Treasury Department, which is really a crackerjack investigatory team in their own right. Now you're dovetailing it with the FBI. They're looking into this. They want to know what's going on. Now all of a sudden you've got the focus. You've got the focus of a couple different alphabet agencies working and looking, and then they will go to an all too willing Twitter to give up the information on some of these cases. Now, why is that interesting? Why did I talk about the Florida rally? Is because after the Florida rally, they came up to Pennsylvania. And in the Pennsylvania rally last year, now you're in my neck of the woods. Now I know the people that are doing the rallies. I can call my chairman of the GOP. I can talk to the executive director. I can talk to the people who are working the event. And so I kind of put my little red flag up saying, hey, I'm a Twitter guy. I know you guys don't really care about Twitter all that much. But I'm telling you, there's this really insidious little weird QAnon thing, and it may sound harmless, but really what it's propagating is things that are, flat out anarchist, overthrowing the government essentially, which is declaring martial law, military tribunals for citizens, habeas corpus being suspended. I mean, you're talking about some weird shit that's just not cool. And right about that time, we had this so-called QAnon person related in a kidnapping event. And so that all kind of tied together. So Secret Service, that was the first event in Pennsylvania where they were actively seeking to remove Q paraphernalia from the people who were coming in. There weren't too many, I'm proud to say, in Pennsylvania, but there were a few, and the hats were removed, the T-shirts were removed. They were given Trump 2020 hats. They were given Trump 2020 T-shirts. They were asked to cover up, and if they would not comply, they were asked to leave. And then that has been the subsequent rule at every other event going forward. They were asked by volunteers, and then if they would not comply with the volunteer, they were approached by Secret Service. There's been many accounts of this confirming it. I know for a fact it happened, and then other people went, and some very disconcerted, disheartened Q fans went on and said, "Oh my God, I can't believe they wouldn't even let me wear my Secret Service told me I couldn't wear Q stuff. That doesn't make any sense." It does when you're talking about vicinity to the president. You're talking about propagating and promulgating information based on intelligence, which should not, if true, should not be repeated through unauthorized channels. So, one, you're talking about a potential crime right there. If it is in fact anybody in the military intelligence, which is we know that they're probably not, because one, their nonsensical posts don't make any sense, and two, Q clearance doesn't really intersperse with the military, because Q is, of course, a top energy department level clearance, traditionally not overlapping in too often in any case. And certainly that would be alarming if true. So the government has allowed this to go on because they have not seen any information that is actually accurate. So there's no way Q to this point. And I appreciate the Super Heart. Thank you. I'm now a Super Heart broadcaster. So hey, throw them at me if it's your desire. Although I will not shill any spoons for you. I will not dance to the music I don't hear. So anyway, we know that the government at that point and to now has chosen not to crack down on Q in any way, shape, or form, because obviously none of the intelligence, the intel drops, are real. Use your little thinking caps. Put on your thinking caps. If Q said anything at any time that was sensitive and was actual use of intelligence that was given over the internet through unauthorized channels, don't you think that somebody in the government is going to say, okay, I'm going to do a keystroke check on everybody in this department, and we're going to go back and we're going to find out who gave out this information? Listen, you can go through Q proofs till the cows come home, and you can't convince them otherwise. But this is the number one reason I can tell you that not one thing that Q or any of the Q group has been correct about, or they haven't been correct about anything, because it would be followed up through to the government, which is a little bit sensitive in case you didn't notice. After what happened with Snowden and then what happened with the WikiLeaks, they're a little bit freaked out about intel getting pipelined out in an anonymous fashion to the internet. So put your cap on up there. The president is not sanctioning this stuff. The president would be in breach. Yes, it is all for a LARP. The president would be in breach of his constitutional oath if he allowed intelligence to be given out. He can't. I mean, the president is the final word on what intelligence can be protected or not protected. But you're telling me that the president is going to declassify things of this nature? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's not going to tell you things about Jared Kushner taking secret trips to Saudi Arabia. He's not going to tell anybody anything about, we have Kim Jong-un because we have CIA plants, and Kim Jong-un, we already have a deal, and now he technically works for the CIA. All of that stuff, of course, is bullshit. And if you believe it, then chances are you've never worked in politics, government, or even read at a 5th grade level. So the essence of Q is that the president is authorizing this. The essence of Q has always been there are people working with the president under the auspices of the president that are feeding you information that is otherwise not known to anyone else, i.e. intelligence, military intelligence in this particular instance. So now you've triggered another alphabet. It's like, now just to be 100% sure that there's no loose contractor somewhere that's sitting, in some contracting position through the DOD. They're going to have to, the DOD is probably working on that. They are probably going through and combing through and doing security checks to make sure that we do not, particularly after the crazy-eyed, don't forget about the Coast Guard officer who was basically a underground white nationalist who was putting together a pretty impressive armory and was we're lucky we caught him before he killed a bunch of people working for the government, actually using his workstation computer at times, apparently, to look up things that were alarming, and we finally picked him off and got him. So there could be other incidences now. So now Q is an impossibility. Q cannot exist in reality. No one with military intelligence access, particularly any access to the president, could possibly be putting forth this information on 8chan. All right. Now we know that that would be an impossibility. If it were even plausible, it would be immediately addressed by the appropriate authorities, and it would be over. That's it. It wouldn't happen again. So what you have is something that is just cross-pollination of different people in different places, thinking that they're being cute with this whole QAnon. It's not so cute anymore. So I don't have any particular information about David Joseph Hayes. You know that I know David Joseph Hayes better than all of you. You know that I've known him for a couple of years. So Praying Medic, aka David Joseph Hayes, it's a stranger to you, and perhaps if you follow Q in some way, it might be like an oracle to you. In reality, I know what he is. He's a con man, a long time con man. So what David Hayes is apparently dealing with right now is Twitter is actively cooperating with federal investigations into anything related to Q, 8chan, and anything that had anything to do with anybody getting murdered, either abroad or here, related to these anonymous boards. They're not going to tolerate it any longer. So this is what's going to happen. Twitter's going to start giving up. They're going to hold your account, freeze it, give up the information, and they're particularly going to be interested in making sure of your content. So what David Joseph Hayes, aka Praying Medic, did was when he discovered that he could no longer do certain functions on his Twitter account, he quickly deactivated before they could permanently find the content to ban his account. He wasn't mass reported. There wasn't any of that thing going on. From what I'm told, he then triggered, and I'm sure somebody told him how to do this because in tech factors, he's a moron. He doesn't know anything about computers. He then triggered a Twitter alarm by trying to follow too many people. So he had limited functional ability, limited functionality. He couldn't respond to DMs. He couldn't like people's tweets. It's typical things when Twitter is holding your account for review. He started following as many people as he could, and that triggers a suspicious alarm, so to speak, an algorithm. It stops your account and warns you, we need to look at this. So he did that on purpose, retroactively, to disguise the fact that they are evaluating his content. Most likely, they are providing it to a federal investigatory body. So that's a big time problem if you're David Joseph Hayes. Why would David Joseph Hayes be more nervous than, say, In the Matrix or Joe M or any of these other accounts? Why would he be more nervous? Well, David Joseph Hayes is a greedy con man. It's not enough for him. Not enough for him to do the typical super chat LARP or the PayPal links everywhere on his Twitter profile and his websites and all that. What he decided to do was call his deciphering of Q part of his ministry. And he went to the IRS and got a 508. So he is now in receipt of tax deductible, so-called charitable contributions to his ministry under the guise of deciphering Q, which is essentially secret military intelligence leaked onto 8chan. So think about that. Now we have a problem. We have a problem because the IRS has probably, as we have long forecasted, I guarantee the IRS has been alerted now by the other agencies that are looking into this, and they are reviewing the status of his 508. But he's so greedy that he's washing this money through his ministry and buying property and has established a nonprofit board. Now he's infecting other people. Now he is actually committing a series of crimes a series of crimes that is going to probably result in a pretty serious investigation. And I can't even imagine what it's like for him right now, because what seemed like a harmless game is now being investigated for any possible role in both individual murder of a crime boss, who, for all we know, the fact that he wasn't arrested and the fact that he was the first one killed in all those decades was probably working with another agency in some form of capacity with the FBI. So they might be pissed off that this guy's dead. And they might want to know why this guy's sitting at an arraignment with a Q written on his hand, drawn on his hand. Yeah, the FBI, the feds are a little funny like that. The feds are a little funny like that. They don't just let that shit slide. All of this timing is pretty interesting. Now he's doing his OJ act, jumping in the Jeep. God knows where he's going, but you ain't getting in it. You ain't getting out of this. You ain't getting out of it. We knew this day was coming. The crows, they're coming home to roost. Bad news for Mr. Hayes. There is a multiple alphabet agency investigation now looking into not only 8chan, but anything affiliated with 8chan that is involved with illegality. So if you are viewing or, God forbid, posting child pornography or any other form that has been deemed obscenity prior by the Supreme Court, or any other violation of a normal citizen's, right not to have something that doesn't belong on the internet, you are probably your data is probably being transferred right now. Your IP addresses are being tracked. Your VPNs will not save you. If you happen to be one of the assholes who was actively putting out the live stream link through Facebook that the New Zealand shooter was using, or if you in some way remarked, holy shit, he actually did it, I didn't think he was going to do it, all of these things now prefatory to the crime become relative to the crime. Because it's not, like I said before, just because it's not in continental contiguous American ground and no American citizens were killed, there is an American-esque forum here, even if the servers are not all obviously warehoused here. They're looking into all of it. And then unfortunately for them, right on the backs of this, we've got one of the most notorious murders in New York history, because of the significance of a mob boss getting shot down for the first time in over 30 years. Whether or not it's related to Q is not relevant at this point. It was drawn with a series of other QAnon type of literature onto this man's hand, and they have a search history with him looking up, or in some cases interacting. So this whole Q community has gone from, and of course it's the ultimate live action role playing for them, because to them it's like this sad little unfulfilled lives where they watch Red Dawn and they just wish it would become a reality. They just want to go shoot somebody. They don't want any Democrat in power anywhere, so they're just going to come up with things that just make them feel better, that somebody's going to be rounded up and sent to Gitmo and executed, which of course, in and of itself is the most un-American thing you could possibly ever imagine. So Q is not just merely a LARP. Q is essentially a PSYOP, I think probably a successful PSYOP, as successful as the KGB would have been back in the 60s. The FSB is probably clearly greasing the skids through currency of Bitcoin natures and all that. That'll all fall under the investigatory arm as well. I would, if I were you, my advice, if I was involved in 8chan, which I've never been on 8chan, I mean, I've seen it archived by excellent reporters like Doug Stewart. I've seen what they've written and what they're about. We've all seen and heard about the child pornography that is prevalent there. That is not protected free speech, and you will not be hidden behind what you think is a foolproof VPN or some other way of disguising your identity. It doesn't really work that way when the alphabet agencies start getting involved. And for anybody who's involved in actual Booz Allen level contract work with the DOD or others, or any other firm like that, you probably will be given a standard security rundown. And at some point, if there is suspicious activity coming from your particular workstation, they will look at your home computer. And after that, you will probably be called in for a read, a security read, where they will do a polygraph depending on your security level, of your security clearance level. So this is pretty serious now. So it goes from, how important are they going to look at people on Twitter, like Joe M and In the Matrix and some of these other Q accounts that are getting pretty big? How curious will the law enforcement be about checking into this? I don't know. I know that they're hopefully not in a position where they're like David Joseph Hayes, where they're opening up a tax deductible charitable ministry, taking in money off of what you're attempting to tell people is secret military intelligence and decoding it for them in return for money, and then selling books and other things off of that. Now he falls under another level. He'll be checked out by the IRS on multiple levels. He'll probably be checked out by the Department of Justice Criminal Tax Division for the IRS. So I'm sure this is a freak out moment, and I'm sure that his account will come back, because it's not something that was organically done. There is no anti-Q army out there reporting David Joseph Hayes praying medic tweets. He's just kind of as Glenn calls him, a love dumpling. I mean, he's really not that type of level of importance where somebody's going to strategically go after his account. So I'm sure Twitter is just responding to a basic call from the FBI division, and they're looking at it. They're probably getting a call from the Phoenix Bureau or something out there in his area, and they're looking at it, and they'll provide that information to the FBI. The FBI will work with the Department of Treasury and Secret Service to find out, what's been said about the president's involvement, and are these people going to be attempting to attend rallies near the president? At some point now, I'm pretty sure the Secret Service is putting together. They want a name list, and this is probably the biggest thing that I've wanted to get through to you. Was what I've learned over the last couple hours is they seem to be not content anymore to just ask you to take your Q hat off, because people inevitably will take off another shirt and they're wearing Q things underneath of it. They want to know any of these people involved in this type of online chicanery. They want to know, because they can't gauge your level of insanity. So they don't have time to go through and read all of your tweets to find out if you are mentally unstable enough to actually potentially do harm to the president, or in some way embarrass the president by screaming out something about Q in his vicinity while the press can hear it. And then the press will latch on immediately to the most incendiary qualities associated with Q, which is, of course, the execution through military tribunals and violations of all civil rights and suspension of habeas corpus of anyone in America. And that'll, of course, embarrass the president greatly. But their biggest concern at the Secret Service at this point is we are going to be moving forward on rally after rally after rally throughout the course of the spring and the summer. And of course, you have to pre-register for all these rallies. And at this point, we are going to begin matching up identities with people and their Q stances. And in some cases, they will be denied access to these events. And if they are not denied access, they will be under a different protocol where they will not be allowed anywhere near the president, and they will receive extra attention while they're at this if that becomes necessary. It is my impression, from what I've been told, that in order to do this operation as needed, they are going to request information, profile information, IP information from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and try to get it out of the 4chan, 8chan, Reddits. They're looking to identify people, put a name with accounts, so that they can cut down on the threat of the access to the president at these rallies. It has now reached a point where we've had enough incidences. I believe this is about getting to between 4 and, however we want to count it, between 4 and 6 serious incidents involving felonious nature associated with Q and or HN, that they now perceive it to be such a considerable threat to the president that they will seek to line up your so-called identity online with your identity in real life in order to prevent you from gaining access to the president at a rally or any other function where we pre-screen people by registration. So this is the sad reality. It's the sad reality of QAnon. It is now regressed to this point of frustration and multiple forums getting bounced off of one and trying to get into another. And what's left is just really disturbing accounts of anti-Semitism, violence, hysterical hope porn, things that'll never occur, goalposts getting moved. I believe today is another countdown boom day for Q. Nothing's going to happen. That whole part of it, that's the harmless LARP part where we just laugh at people for not understanding how anything works. The not so funny part about all this now is now we have dead people. Dead people bring scrutiny, and 8chan cannot bear any scrutiny. So I think the clock is going to wind down on 8chan pretty quickly. I believe some people are going to be shocked when they are contacted by law enforcement officials related to what they think is their anonymous activity on 8chan. And I believe that that is going to happen, even if it requires court order, and in some cases it will. They are prepared to protect the president's safety beyond all measure. This is what the Secret Service does. And they will work in conjunction with the FBI, who is investigating any connection between the New Zealand shooter, 8chan, Q, Camelo in New York, the murder of the crime boss of the Gambino family. It is just bad timing. And getting caught up in all this will be people like Praying Medic, his charitable ministry, which is funded by donations given under false pretenses. It's fraud. He does not advertise it as for entertainment purposes only, as we've discussed before, and that was researched, and TJ was exactly right when we looked into it. The only thing that saves those people who claim to be astrologers and whatever is the fact that they will put the disclaimer, and he does not. Matter of fact, he does the opposite. He actually puts a charitable ministry status declared by the IRS to get tax deduction. Mom and pop boomers giving them money and being able to deduct it off their tax. See, that's where the government gets a little bit curious, because it's not just about David Joseph Hayes saying what I'm doing is related to my ministry work, or trying to infuse an element of God into this godless, crazy LARP. The problem is that money that mom and pop boomer is sending David Joseph Hayes, that's money not going to the United States Treasury because it's tax deductible. So there's the IRS gets very curious about this. Now the IRS is going to want to work with he's a nonprofit. He's got a nonprofit board with some people from his own home state in Washington. Now you're going to get the Federal Elections Commission involved, see what's going on with these things, and you're going to also, of course, have to deal with the Criminal Tax Division for the IRS under the DOJ umbrella. You've got multiple agencies looking this thing over. So, I honestly think that what is the glitch that happened with Twitter and Pragmatic is merely the beginning of them providing materials to an investigatory body, which at this point is probably local law enforcement, locally situated federal law enforcement. And I believe that is going to get worse for him. And it's a pretty serious issue when you push a LARP this hard. It eventually hits you, as if you saw my tweet, it's called a tipping point in the marketing world. We call it slippage in politics. You hit a point where it just starts to go in the wrong direction. And you push really hard to get Q out there, but now you've pushed it to the direction where it is getting attention, and you're getting attention from law enforcement officials. And they're not going to look upon this because all of it is beyond insidious, but it's also predicated on illegal activity. It is predicated on quote unquote military intelligence being inappropriately broadcast, and it's being broadcast through the internet, and it's being broadcast on various FCC level investigatory angles, if you want to take it that far. So I think you're looking at a broad investigation that's probably been underway quietly for a while. I think now has it been bumped up. I think it's been bumped up. I think we're looking at, like I said, multiple alphabet agencies involved in this. I think if I'm David Joseph Hayes, praying medic, I'm definitely shitting a brick, and they're going to be looking at everything, every transaction. So this is all transactional. This fraud is transactional, and it is fraud, and you can't take money from people on false pretenses with a charitable religious exemption from the IRS, and then you can't funnel that money into real estate that's not related to your ministry. So what I'm guessing David Joseph Hayes is doing is I'm guessing he is paying for his lifestyle through this board, this nonprofit board. I'm guessing he probably purchased this new home of his and is writing that off as his home office or a significant portion of that home. And I probably would wager it'd be difficult for him to get the loans unless it was a cash transaction in a large part for the down payment on the home. And I don't know how mortgage brokers will look at somebody with a PayPal, Patreon cash flow as opposed to a paycheck. So that's where the ministry comes in, pays himself, I'm sure, from the ministry, puts his money from the PayPal, Patreon, and whatever else he has monetized, and he puts that into the ministry and pays himself back out money that was tax deductible from the people who gave it to him. So the government is actually losing that money, which irritates the U.S. Treasury on multiple levels. And so now you have a situation where you put yourself so far out there that, now I'm going to be under scrutiny and I'm not going to be able to withstand it. So it was actually the 8chan, which I don't believe, is something that Praying Medic is involved in more than he has to be. I think it's just he's part of scripting some of these Q drops and having them posted on that board and that forum. But it just so happens to be his bad luck, his misfortune, that 8chan is triggering all of these investigations off of that. Then he falls under the umbrella of Q, and now it's another offshoot of the investigation. And like, oh, by the way, this guy is running a ministry off of it and probably paying himself with money that is not going to the United States government because they are tax deductible donations to him, which is mighty, mighty messed up. So as we predicted, I just didn't predict it would go down this way. I don't think Glenn did. I don't think Ginger did. I don't think Doug Stewart. I don't think JB did. But we got to clean up our own messes now. So I am emphatically warning people that are engaged in 8chan dialogues of this nature that it is probably not conducive to your overall public health as a citizen to be engaging in things like overthrowing the government, circumventing the Constitution, anything like that is pretty hairy stuff, and it's not a LARP in a way that we can laugh this thing off. I mean, you can be a glorified prepper and engage in your little weird fantasies about, Hillary Clinton being a satanic baby killer, but the fact that the cold hard facts are you cannot engage in trading off supposed military intelligence access to the president of the United States and then all of a sudden have to withstand the scrutiny of investigations into wholesale murder. It's not good. It's not good. And then you get into the issues of the monetization, and people are going to want to look at that. And that's where I think it's going to go really wrong. And I think some people like Tracy Diaz, otherwise known as Tracy Beans, I think she probably figured this out at some point and tried to get out. And I think that's what triggered a few of these Q drops to watch who you're following. Some people are building up their followers and then leaving and trying to keep it in another fashion. I think that's what That's what probably happened there. But as far as like Pamphlet Anon and his wife, wow, they're all in. So the Patriot soapbox is definitely, I'm sure, under intense scrutiny as well. So I am at this point, at this early hour, I am 90% sure there are not one, not two, but at least three agencies investigating things that are related to definitely HN and most likely QAnon. And there probably will be security sweeps as we move forward. And from what I'm told, the RNC will be working hand in hand with the Secret Service, with local and state GOP to make sure that we are keeping the president as safe as possible at these public events from anyone who trades on this QAnon theory, conspiracy. That's a problem for a lot of people to have anybody like that anywhere near the president, because we're seeing a large degree of these people are not mentally stable. And you can't have that type of exposure to the president, because that's exactly what the Secret Service does. So if you thought that this was kind of a laughing joke, which is we all bust on Q for being patently absurd and nothing ever happens, and of course it just one false prediction after another. Of course it's false. I'll go back to my predicate logic argument versus propositional logic argument. Is listen, nothing, if it ever came true, it would be cracked down on, but the NSA would get involved. There would be all types of issues. The FBI would, get involved. There would be the Department of Defense would get involved. If there was, one thing accurately assessed by the Q team, besides some bizarre coincidence that people think is a Q proof, I know for a fact that this is how our government works. They get involved and they crack down on it and it goes away. So the reason why Q has been left to go on this long is because it's been a relatively harmless, weird, sick prepper fascination for a bunch of people that don't realize that they're just out there propagating Russian, propaganda, which is really sad, for the Civics 101 aspect of everyday Americans. But now we've gone into stone cold mass murder and Gambino crime bosses getting whacked by a guy who just happens to like Q. That's something that the feds are going to want to look at. They're going to want to understand that, and the Secret Service is definitely curious now, because now like I said, we've had a half dozen or more of these violent incidences where you're getting into. They don't really differentiate between QAnon and Pizzagate or anything of that nature. The Secret Service is going to look at anyone who engages in any type of hyperbole that involves violence or calls for violence as a solution, or calls for belief in or subscribing to a theory where there are hundreds, if not thousands, of politicians who are, killing babies or, involved in sex trafficking children and drinking their blood. And, that's going to put you on a list. You're going to be on a list. And that's how we have to move forward, unfortunately, to keep the president safe from these people. And unfortunately, I don't think this will be the last violent incident that we see. It was geared up for a crescendo of violence. It was geared up for people that are going to be either, very disappointed to the point of just like, I don't even know what the crestfallen when things don't happen as the way they anticipated it, which clearly they're not going to, because this is the United States of America, and we don't suspend habeas corpus, and we don't subject civilians to military tribunals, and we don't declare martial law on a national level, and we don't use the emergency broadcasting system to declare martial law, and we don't round up people without due process, because that's America. And if you did any one of those things, you would cease to be a constitutional republic. You would cease to be an experiment in democracy, and you would be a military dictatorship. So lots of disturbing things that these people believe that we would laugh off and mock them for a while. And now we've got, thanks to 8chan, we've got this dark underbelly, which has been exposed, and the seedy element is going to be put out into a much larger public forum than just the Daily Beast, or just, a couple of different Twitter reporters or a Politico article. You're talking about more of these New York Times, Washington Post level. They hate covering Q. major publications hate it because they know that it's going to only, contribute to more people getting roped up into this stuff. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think it's a sad, sad, sad day when we have to utilize federal law enforcement capabilities this way, resources this way. I think it's a sad day when we can't tell the difference between a Trump supporter and an anarchist who wants to overthrow the government or make Trump some type of military dictator. That's pretty weird and, hard for the Secret Service, because these people that are most militantly aligned with this theory are also going to be the ones most intent on getting close to him in proximity. It's a self-fulfilling need to have him validate in some way, Q. So the only way they're ever going to get that, they think in their own minds, is to get close enough to the president and have that be allowed. And that is a very dangerous element to the Secret Service. They do not like that. They don't like anybody that's that frantic to get that close to the president. It's just not good, because there's a fine line between the crazy Gene Huber guy wanting to give the president a hug and John Hinckley. I mean, how the hell do you know? These people are nuts. So it's just, for the Secret Service, it's just a really hard job, and I think that's where the other agencies will work in conjunction with them to make sure that we can crack down on this thing. And it's really sad. It's really sad because I think it's the worst time for Facebook and Twitter, to a large degree, to have to engage in cracking down on another, what they perceive to be conservative base of people, which I don't consider Q people to be conservative. I consider them to be insane or ignorant people. So it's just a bad time, but they have no choice but to do it. And if I'm out there, if I'm one of those people that woke up to this, if I'm a mom and pop that just got fooled by it and started listening to David Joseph Hayes because he called himself the praying medic, and they just weren't aware that he has no possible ability to discern anything involved with government or politics or the law, because he's basically just an out-of-work EMT. And you gave him money, and you know that it was tax deductible on your tax forms, and I would request that money back if I were you. I would submit my request to David Joseph Hayes, to his ministry in writing, and I would request my money back. And then I would complete that transaction with the IRS to make sure that I remitted what I took off my taxes, if I was dumb enough to take that off my taxes as a charitable deduction. I would if I were you, I would contact his ministries through his website, which I guess is like prayingmedic.com or some dumb shit. I would definitely, in writing, say, listen, man, I'm not comfortable with this. This is obviously something shady going on here, and you're using my money for your own personal use. And it was something that I deducted off my taxes because you told me it was a ministry, and it's clearly not a ministry. So my advice to anybody is that would just be what I would do to clear my own conscience of it. And then, of course, I would really take a hard look at what Q is about, what Q is attempting to get people to do. It's worse than hope porn, is what people refer to it. It is worse than that. It is actually a degradation of American values. It flies in the face of everything every soldier has fought, bled, and died for since the Revolutionary War. I mean, we have a few thousand. I can't tell you if it's 10,000 or 100,000 people that are readily, transactionally, whether it's money or posting or retweeting, propaganda against a constitutional republic. That's pretty serious stuff. I mean, it's a problem on many, many, many levels. And again, I think your point's well taken. I mean, using God for more money, because people will donate easier with it if it's tax deductible. But using God to promulgate this propaganda is even worse. It's the lowest of the low, and I guess it just confirms who he was at the earlier part of his whole adult life, which is a self-described atheist, self-described abuser of his ex-wife. We're talking about stalking, harassment, PFAs, foreclosures, admitted financial failures, the long game, con game, selling his wife's painting online, which are like just, oh my God, it would make Warhol's eyes bleed. And then writing these really ridiculous books that get into like astral projection and things that are not Christian at all. So, positing and putting himself up as a Christian who's deciphering basic Russian propaganda that the American democracy is broken. Essentially, that's what Q is. At this point, Q is essentially propaganda saying that the democracy in America is over. It's broken. The system is broken. It is irreparably broken. We cannot withstand it any longer. The deep state has won, and Donald Trump is our last hope. It is not acceptable to leave it hinge on his reelection in 2020. Therefore, he must declare ultimate authority and somehow smite his enemies and transport people en masse to Gitmo for military tribunals, suspend habeas corpus, the due process that we all have as our basic civil rights, and in many cases, apparently using the emergency broadcasting system to declare martial law, which would enact, National Guard. And I think they're saying the Army itself would operate illegally inside the military force inside the contiguous America. That would be, of course, a definite constitutional violation as well. So it's inexcusable propaganda. It's trying to destroy the makeup of your own country. So the whole thing befuddles me. And then pile on top of this nature, this Scientology-like cult-like behavior. And it's just it's unconscionable to me what they've done. Grave harm. They've done grave harm to the president's brand. They've done grave harm to all reputations of Trump supporters everywhere who are being lumped in by these political articles, by the Daily Beast, Right Wing Watch. I mean, they are just promoting the hell out of this stuff because it makes us look absolutely ridiculous. So, hey, if it's something that gets you through the day and you're just one of these people that read it on Twitter or share it out on Facebook, well, that's on you. If you're one of these people selling T-shirts, trading on for monetary gain, transactional monetary gain, trading on supposed military intelligence leaks, then I would be concerned if I were you. And if you're one of these big accounts who claims that you think you're anonymous, you're totally not anonymous to the government whatsoever. I do not in any way promote your anonymity. I do not. I think that if you are trading on the Q LARP for dollars, that you should put your name out there the same way any of us do when we're raising money for our nonprofit, which in this case would be a political action committee to stop people like you from harming the president. So my name is out there and I don't hide behind anything. So if you want to, hide and still, make money off of books and T-shirts and things of that nature, which essentially you're making it off of Russian propaganda, I think that you should probably just start paying your taxes and put your name out there and do it the right way. And if you're smart, hopefully you're not in legal trouble like Praying Medic probably is right now. And so my warning to people is sometimes a LARP just isn't a LARP. Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's going to get people in trouble, and in some cases it's going to get people killed, because there are people genuinely, emphatically, what they perceive to be patriotically inclined people that are willing to take up arms in the name of materializing the prophecy, manifesting the prophecy, so to speak. That is a radicalization process that should make every normal thinking Trump supporter a little bit nervous and leery, because we're already in bad shape with these incidents that have happened thus far. Do we want to have more? And do we want to have it on a more serious level? Could do irreparable harm to the reputation of Trump and his supporters. So the circular logic, everything that they do is deflection. what are you afraid of? Or why are you attacking MAGA? Well, that's not how. You can't be making America great again if you are stripping any American of their constitutional rights. Don't you understand? Don't you understand? They're brainwashing you into trying to undermine your own country. Think about it. And now people are getting exposed to other things on 8chan as well, and that'll include serious anti-Semitism, serious racial divide, and in some cases, obscene child pornography. And to them, they think it's like the ultimate expression of free speech, and to us, normal people who they call normies, we see the facilitation of violence against children. We see the facilitation of propaganda against our own government. So we see that as more than problematic. We see it as criminal activity. So 8chan is a cesspool. 8chan is not a bastion of free speech. And frankly, the only anonymous thing that I could ever imagine would be allowed as protected hate speech would be putting a hood over your head and getting a permit as a KKK member, and walking down the town street with a hood, which I don't even think you can do anymore, really. So if you really feel that way, if you hate Jewish people, or if you hate Latinos or blacks or Catholics like myself, if you hate and you're full of hate, then be a man, or in very few cases, be a woman, and put on your big boy, big girl pants, and go file a permit request in your municipality and walk down the street with a sign saying that you believe that there's a Zionist regime in charge, and this is a puppet government run by satanic pedophiles, and Trump needs to become essentially a de facto dictator in order to solve it. Because hiding behind an anonymous trolling account on 8chan is not protected to me at all. I think it's just a cesspool. It brings out the worst in people and things. And if 4chan mods are too tough for you, then you're a sick bastard. I think that's the end of it. That's the long and short of it. If 4chan mods are too tough for you, and the Reddit mods are too tough for you, and you need to go somewhere where it's just completely unfettered, for you to just put up kiddie porn and Jew jokes, I got nothing for you. I'm not here to protect that. All right? I will fight. I will die for your right to express whatever it is you want to say. I will not lift a finger to help you maintain an anonymous profile on a near dark web chan that is prolific in child pornography and hate. Take your so-called free speech out to the streets like they used to do it, like they've been doing it since the time of the framers, ever sitting around in a tavern putting together the documents that you're undermining this very day as a Q believer by overthrowing a constitutional republic and supplanting it with even a brief military dictatorship, and then using out of context Lincolnian discussions about what we had to do during Reconstruction and the Civil War. It is intellectually beyond dishonest. It's disgusting. So now we've got two subject matters, 8chan and Q, that are inextricable now, because the only place that Q could make this, left and remain anonymous. They think they're anonymous. They're not anonymous. So think about this. Everything I'm telling you about what's being investigated right now, do you think there's a chance in hell any one of these people are anonymous anymore? You already have people like JB and DeFango telling you how this whole thing started. Okay, we already have Pamphlet Anon, Coleman Rogers, getting busted with his own trip codes while he's live on his little Patriots, soapbox. So you know who's doing it now, and you know who was doing it then. And if you're still following it, then you're outside the umbrella of intellectual exchanges. Now I can't communicate with you. Now you might as well be speaking Aramaic at me, because why do I say Aramaic instead of Mandarin? Is because more people speak Mandarin in the world than anything else, and almost nobody left in the world can speak Aramaic. So that's what you are. You're outside the intellectual discourse. You're outside the umbrella, the cone of discourse. We can't communicate with you anymore because you defy logic, and you put up these walls and these circular discussions. These circular discussions about it's us. Why are we attacking Q? And the duplicity is amazing to me, because when a major media outlet writes about Q gets on right away. One of the Q people, whether it's David Hayes or Coleman Rogers, his wife, or whoever else is in on the scam now, they quickly get on, like Jordan Sather or somebody. They'll quickly get on and say, all this for a LARP or something like that. Like they're mad as hell that they got coverage, but they want the coverage. They need the coverage. So it's this duality that I think makes no sense whatsoever to people, anyone with a brain. So no, I will not protect your. I will call, and I have signed the petition to ban 8chan, and I will anything that comes up in its stead and performs the same type of hate speech and violence mongering and child pornography and exposure and exploitation of children. That is the ultimate irony. The Q narrative is driven off of the abuse of children and sex peddling operations by politicians who suck their blood. But at the same time, it is on a forum which is most notorious for its child exploitation and child pornography visibility. So get your minds around that one, sports fans. Think about that one. 8chan is home to both Russian freaking propaganda to undermine your own country, and also is the same place where you can see child pornography because the mods don't do anything in 8chan. And you can also get a good wind of the most vile anti-Semitic shit since Goebbels was at his peak in the 30s in Germany. I'm happy. I'm happy that this is now in the ranks of the government investigatory agencies. I am happy that the Secret Service is now putting it to a level where they will attempt to identify to a larger degree your social media profiles with your information, your driver's license that you're submitting to go to a rally. And if you think that's a surrender of your right to remain anonymous, then okay, that's the right. You have the right not to see the president in person then. And I will not criticize Twitter or Facebook for giving up all of your information to the federal government if they think that you are involved in anything that is just potentially illegal. I just don't care. Don't do anything illegal then. Okay? You do not. It's a privilege. We have enough trouble with legitimate shadow banning and banning, as pointed out by Devin Nunes' lawsuits against Twitter. We have enough trouble with legitimate people getting shut down. All of you Q people are doing a grave disservice to conservative ideological perspective. You are all doing a grave disservice because you are making it even easier to crack down on legitimate conservative accounts because of your obscene insanity, because of your abject stupidity, because of your promulgation of outright Russian anti-American propaganda, which is calling for a de facto military dictatorship. That is un-American. Isn't it ironic that the Q conspiracy on its face and at its core is the most un-American so-called conspiracy going on the internet these days? It's just pretty interesting. And for 8chan to be the home of it is just, you would think it would be ironic, but it's not ironic at all. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. The home of child pornography and anti-Semitism on the internet is also the home of the Q group. And they have no rights to remain anonymous. And they hopefully some of the people that I've been talking to that were originally involved or knew of who was involved communicate and cooperate with federal law enforcement agencies. And then comes the real pain, which will be in the form of the Department of Justice Criminal Tax Division for the IRS investigations into the money that's been brought in from these LARPers. And it won't be pretty. And there'll be a pretty forensic rundown on all that stuff. And they deserve all of it. They deserve every ounce of scrutiny. They should not function outside of some form of legitimacy. I have to sign documents. My treasurer has to sign documents. We have to file reports with the FEC because we're influencing politics, and people can donate to us to influence politics. So if you're donating to the MAGA coalition, you're donating to me essentially to broadcast the truth of what's going on inside this movement, and it is legitimate. If you want to come after me, you know you're coming after Adam Gingrich. I'm not hiding away. I'm not behind a fake account somewhere. I don't have multiple fake accounts. I have a backup account with my name and face on it, and I have my real account with my name, Gingrich of PA, right here. And I don't even have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. I don't have accounts on any of that shit. So my belief as a person that's engaged in the process to hopefully put forth American first policy issues and to assist in the re-election of the president in 2020, unfortunately, my job has become, plow the road, because we've got our own snowflakes that are just outright, propagandists, Russian propagandists, essentially, calling for the deep and fundamental questioning of our Constitution and our republic by undermining it and seeking I don't even know what you call it, an implementation of martial law, which essentially strips each American citizen of their constitutional and civil rights. So I'm pleased that we've gotten to this point, because we don't have a whole lot of time before we get into the real political season. And hey, I'm not shadow banned. I'm not shadow banned at all. I'm just putting my time and efforts into doing something that is not palatable to a lot of people. And you have to not care if people follow you or not. Or you have to not care if your views go down on something like Periscope. Big deal, whatever. We're here for a mission, a purpose of truth, of enlightenment, and of support for the America First policies that were put forth by President Trump. And I would like to see the man reelected. And frankly, I would like him to be safe wherever he goes. And that means being safe from people who subscribe to theories like martial law and sending Americans to Gitmo for military tribunals when they're not in the military. These are all dangerous things. These are all, they're self-described militias that are being formed in the name of Q. All very strange behavior. And I don't want my president exposed to it. So I'm very happy to see that the Secret Service is extending and working with the FBI into investigating the identities of these Q propagandists to make sure that they cross-file that with those who are going to events or might be anywhere near the president in a fundraising arena or anywhere where you have to be cleared, because you want to make sure that some of these crazy anonymous accounts aren't really the people that are showing up with their ID, and we don't have any other red flags showing. So it's an intensive effort right now. Fortunately, there are algorithms that make it very easy for Facebook and Twitter to turn over all information about Q, people that are tweeting Q, the IP address, all things which can be cross-referenced. There's no VPN that's going to hide where you're really tweeting from or your device. You can't avoid being tracked by the government. There is no true anon, really. It just doesn't really exist once the government wants to get your identity. So if you are trading off of that propaganda, if you are trading off of that, I want to use the right word here. I don't even know if I have it. I mean, it's not just a conspiracy. If you're trading off of an end game or vocalizing or espousing or engendering an end game that calls for the basic stripping of rights, constitutional rights, violation of rights for other people, whether it's Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, or Obama. If you're calling for that type of situation, I don't particularly care for that type of speech. It may be protected, but it's odd. I certainly don't want you around the president because you are a volatile, questionable mental status. If you want to get right down to it, I believe that you would, if you are one of these people. And as I said, I'm happy to debate this matter with anyone. I am happy to debate the matter if you would like to have an intellectual discussion about that, or even just Q in the context of the parlance of our time. I am willing to engage in that. I must warn you that I am not going to be sent to any Q websites because most of them are just browser cancer, and I don't want it on any device of mine, and I certainly don't want any malware, which is probably associated. And I think that the monetization of Q is thoroughly disgusting, and I think it should be investigated. And I don't think you should be openly utilizing what you think is your right. But frankly, it is a privilege to be on Twitter or Facebook or any other privately, publicly owned, not regulated by the FCC, even if you want to call it a utility. Frankly, listen, if they want to get rid of you, they're going to get rid of you. And I think you're making it a lot harder for people like me to stay on as a conservative when you pimp out your Q bullshit, which makes everybody on our side of the aisle look just flat out stupid. Flat out stupid. I don't know what else you want in the way of, everybody's talking about proof and disproof. It's seriously, it's like, I can't. I mean, how would I talk out somebody from a Scientology wing? I mean, I can't. I mean, there's nothing I can say if you're going to constantly be, Q reinforces this thing very much in a cult-like nature, so they all have the same responses. So you just got to ask yourself. You're the only person that can wake yourself up before you find yourself in a position like David Hayes, where you're just driving down the road wondering, how the hell am I going to explain all this? And, how much are my lawyers going to cost? What am I going to, tell the government about where this money's been going? What am I going to tell the IRS? What am I going to do if my Twitter account gets banned and YouTube channels keep getting banned, and I have this house that I can't afford anymore because my money dried up? There is nothing happening. There'll be no mass arrest. There'll be nothing like that, because that would be the end of America, and you're a sick person for wishing that. I feel bad that your life is going that poorly, that you would want that to happen. And I feel badly that you wouldn't recognize if anyone with a Q level clearance that actually overlapped into the military, which would be a serious breach of classified intelligence, putting it on 8chan, the home of rabid racism and child pornography. It is nonsensical. It is completely fabricated. And it's also you doing the work of people who hate America, and the rest of them are just trying to make money off of it. And there's probably more to it than that. There's probably the fact that they got up and running is probably an investment through cryptocurrencies by outside people who want to destabilize the conservative base. It could be Tom Steyer, or it could be the FSB in Russia. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, well, we can find out. I mean, Q itself should have stayed on a lower profile. now we're you put 8chan Square into the target, and 8chan will be taken out. And hopefully some of those disgusting people on there will get their just desserts. And if they want to go legit, that's cool. If you got an 8chan profile, and I know you all swear by this like some kind of holy oath to your anonymity, but really what that is an oath to cowardice. So if you really want to put your name out there, then I applaud anybody who's willing to give that speech. The hate speech, it's protected speech. If you want to say that you hate Jewish people, or you think Jewish cabals are controlling the banking system, the Fed, and the media empires, if you want to go ahead and say that, go ahead and say it. I will fight for your right to do it if you want to put your name on it. And that's the American way. That's how our Constitution works. That's how court precedents have fleshed out. If you are attempting to monetize off of this propaganda, if you are one of these people that are utilizing a platform which is not regulated as a utility, i.e. Facebook and Twitter, you are in violations of terms of service, and you are making it much harder for all of us to stay as conservatives on these forums. And you are weakening on multiple fronts the support for Donald Trump's reelection. You are basically mocking us as conservatives. It is self-flagellating. It's awkward to watch. It is just low-hanging fruit for the enemy, and then the enemy is the media. And it's just insane how we've seen a large part of our, not a large part, but a sizable chunk of our social media base tying itself into a pretzel over this thing. It's time to wake up, and I'm just doing my small part in doing that. I really feel very poorly. I feel badly that people have been snookered, taken in by this. None of it is feasible, and none of it has ever been proven to be nth degree at all to be factual. There is no real Q proof. There is nothing but a series of strange timestamps and coincidences and words that people think are Q proofs, and they're just not. And when somebody on an Anon and HN ask Q to have the president say tip top in the State of the Union in January, and then 3 months later, the president says tippy top at the Easter egg hunt at the White House, and they use this as a Q proof. Go ahead and Google Trump and then put tip top and tippy top in quotations, and you will see that the man has been saying this literally every month for the last 30 years of his life. These are not Q proofs. Pictures of random watches on notepads that belong to no one in government have nothing to do with a Q proof. Well, it says 315, and then over here it says 452, 352. And then William Barr declared a national emergency at 352. Q proof. Oh, wait, what are you talking about? They have pictures of that watch and the other watch and all kinds of watches, what they take every minute for 12 hours so that they can do that in retrospect. You've got to use your head. Look at all the times that they've been caught lying about images close to the president. And then you just do reverse Google searches and you find out these are not new images at all. And they were, unpublished AP photos or something like that. It's just really sad. It's really sad. My favorite one was when they're like, oh yeah, look at this photo of Trump and his staff. And it was like, Q was the first letter to the code of the photo. And then Lee Stranahan got on, God bless him, and did an anonymous, and he just did it. He pulled one up randomly and stuck it up there, and it came up, with Q as well. I mean, so it was just a root branch off of the file. So it's really absurd to try to pile up these very circumstantial, nothing of any real benefit to anyone. Hey, I've had people send me stuff. I just laugh at it. It's just so ridiculous. How's that Saudi Arabia stuff working out for you, Q? How'd that work out? Oh, it's a massive crackdown on all the Hillary Clinton Foundation people in Saudi Arabia that were working with her on child trafficking. No, it wasn't. It was, turns out, Bin Salman just decided to shake down a bunch of sheiks and make a bunch of money because, he was hurting for cash. And then left. Then he went and killed Khashoggi, and now he's in jail, basically. He can barely run his country. And no, we don't have any secret agreements to overhaul the Middle East now. We're lucky that we can even hold on to the power structure in Saudi Arabia right now. And by the way, North Korea, how'd that one go? How'd that one go with the predictions about, well, we got it now. We got it now. The clowns are gone. The clowns are removed. Now Kim Jong-un, who's really a good guy, not a total horse's ass who imprisons his own people and starves them. Now he's not a CIA asset anymore. And Tim Schmidt from Google went over at the end of the term in Obama's and made some kind of weird CIA move. It was just so convoluted and stupid. It doesn't make any sense. And we were going to have like this grand reunification between North and South Korea. How's that working out for you, Q? How's that working out? It's working out like a moron who knows nothing about world geopolitical effect of anything. You don't know anything. None of this stuff is coming to fruition. Your military parade didn't happen, and it won't happen. There's not going to be any booms today. Nothing. Mueller's not a white hat. Nobody's getting indicted. Nobody except Republicans, anyway. I realize it's frustrating. I realize that's why people, would rather listen to crazy people like Brendan Dilley than listen to me because, why not shout obscenities at you and wave spoons around and then talk about how the president watches him and then starts telling you about all the shit that's never going to happen. Why would you tell a life coach with no clients, military secrets, who ran for Congress and got 734 votes, swearing that the president knows who he is, didn't even live in the district, didn't even turn in his signatures appropriately, could have been kicked out, but the party didn't even want to give him enough attention to have him thrown off the ballot. But yet he's getting top secret military intelligence that never comes true. None of it ever happens. Is this plausible to you? Is this plausible to you? Is it more plausible that I have spent a large portion of my life in politics and government, fortunate enough to work with a bunch of great people in Pennsylvania that ended up going to work for the administration, didn't start a PAC, but took up a PAC that was falling apart and made a go of it and, hired Sebastian Gorka for a while and things like that. And met a lot of cool people. And I know the top of the food chain in the RNC. Is it possible that I might occasionally text or call somebody and ask for like, hey, a rundown on I heard this or something like that? Is that more plausible that I may even deduce on my own what's going on in any type of political or geopolitical situation? Or is it more plausible that a guy sitting out in Arizona who I might have graduated high school, I don't know, but then bragged about never having a day of college, and you can tell that, screaming at his phone, obscenity after obscenity, screaming at Meemaw for sending him Bible verses, hawking spoons for $75 a piece, yelling about some military intelligence that he gets that nobody else has, yelling about Greg Gutfeld stealing his jokes, talking about the president watching his periscopes. On the plausibility scale here, folks, what's more likely? What's more likely? Well, let me tell you this. Neither really matters. Neither really matters. Does Fox News suck? Yeah, Fox News sucks. Is CNN and MSNBC outright enemies to the president? Yeah, they are. Is watching it any more valuable than listening to NPR? No, it's really not. Is it no fun? Because reality sucks. Political reality sucks just as bad under Donald Trump as it did under George Bush. It's no fun. It's the only fun part about all this is that we have a chance to do some great things. We have Donald Trump, who always makes things entertaining. If you are not entertained enough by Donald Trump as president and you need more, you have a serious problem. You should never be interested in politics because that's just, you are never going to have this again in your life. This is the most fascinating otherworldly political experience I've ever witnessed in my life. And I remember Reagan in like 81, 82. This is unlike anything you'll ever see. And you want what? Military tribunals? You've already got an overhauled economy. You've already got all these things that were reversed. I mean, we reversed like gangrene economic limbs in this country. We were turning into a wholesale retail service oriented black hole economy that was just living off of cheap labor worldwide. No manufacturing sector, middle class dying off, private unions dead, funneling in ag workers wherever we could freaking get them. Koch brothers running the show, Chamber running the show, living with Paul Ryans of the world, John Boehners. Now we got a shot. We got a shot. We're trying to build up back middle class. We've got guys who used to be in unions that now, miss those wages, love their guns, love their families, love their Bibles and the Constitution. And we got a chance to win these Rust Belt states again. We got a shot. We got a shot to do PA again. We got a shot to do Michigan. We got a shot to do Wisconsin. Right now, Bernie Sanders beats Donald Trump in Wisconsin. Right now, Wisconsin, since Walker's out, their new governor just signed a bill issuing driver's license to illegals in Wisconsin. That's how close the tipping point is in these states. Now, Ohio and Florida, I feel good about, but I don't fall asleep at night counting North Carolina or Georgia in our column yet. I mean, yeah, we're up a couple points, but what are you looking at? What are the rest of these people looking at? Well, if there's not mass arrest before 2020, I'm not voting for Trump. Oh, mass arrest. That's going to be our qualifier now? Mass arrest? Well, he hasn't suspended habeas corpus and rounded up people and threw them on buses and flown them to Gitmo and executed them yet. What are you talking about? You are either under-medicated or over-medicated or not medicated at all. If this is the standard bearer required for you to vote for Trump in 2020. He does not direct the Justice Department. He can barely call over there without it being front page news. Do you really think Trump is in any way organizing a mass roundup of anyone? The answer to that is no. 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 No, he's not. And it would be completely inappropriate and unconstitutional for him to direct that type of activity out of the Department of Justice anyway. And, oh, by the way, we have perhaps the most serious-minded Attorney General that we've had in, I don't even freaking know how many decades, who certainly would not pick up the phone and go, yes, Mr. President, round up Obama and Hillary Clinton. I am on it. What are you smoking? What are you smoking? Why do you even want that? What do you want them to declassify? What do you even want them to declassify? It's just going to cause you more consternation because it's going to toe the line of impropriety and they will not be able to prove any criminal negligence or criminal intent and no one will be indicted. They knew what they were doing. Are you at all surprised that people who deal with this tradecraft for a living found a way to skirt the laws by trying to screw Trump? I can tell you right now that all you're going to get is some process crimes. Maybe we get Bruce Orr. Maybe Bruce Orr said something in a conversation with the FBI that wasn't true and was contradicted by later testimony in front of Congress. Perhaps William Barr will not like that and will submit him the same way McCabe was submitted to a D.C. grand jury. It's possible. Is that what Q's telling you? No. No. Q's not telling you that. Q is confused all the time. These people are very confused all the time. They don't understand what the hell's going on. They don't understand how it works. They don't understand how turnover works. And, they just take shots. And they really thought that somehow that we were going to hold the House when we all knew that that was going to be a really uphill battle. And, oh, by the way, they also assured you that all of the illegal voting issues were solved. And then all of a sudden we get our ass kicked in California because of the legal canvassing that they do out there. We get our ass kicked in Maricopa because of the barely legal shit that they did that the RNC didn't counter. And all of a sudden we're back to, oh, it was illegal voting again. When is this going to end? When is this going to end? It is intellectually offensive. You cannot bring me anything that's going to tell me that this is one iota, one scintilla of truth to this whole thing. And you are making a fool of yourself if you are subscribing to any of this. And if you're driving around with a Q sticker on your bumper, don't be surprised if somebody runs you off the road because they just are so fed up with how dumb you're making the rest of us look. I could go on for hours. I really don't want to. I don't want to.
Sean, you need to give me another plug. I need to be able to plug my satellite terrestrial radio, Sean. I have this beautiful board, but there are no lights lighting on the calls. No one's calling me. I even want Glenn to call me, to harangue me. Any call would be something that I would look forward to at this point.
You're a soy boy, anime porn whore, wanna be a big name bag someday, dry cum on your face, you meme about race, pimpin' ancient shit all over the place, so we will mock you. I said, we will mock you. Buddy, you're a troll tard, straight up bastard, gonna get somebody shot someday, got spunk on your face, you spewing your hate, fapping your wiener all over the place. We will mock you. Sing it! We will mock you. Yeah! Buddy, you're an old Joe blinking Rick Rolls, gotta get your ass out of the basement someday, you got splooge on your face, a fat disgrace, somebody better put you back into your place. We will mock you. Yeah!